it's all personal to me. It's my baby. Like, I've sacrificed so much personally for this, and this has afforded me so much personally as well. And so the blend to me is it's just my time. And, whatever is the highest priority in the moment gets my time.
Hi, thanks for being here and welcome to Season 2 of The Founder Mindset, brought to you by ATB. I'm Leah Sarich, your host, and I'm super excited to talk to more founders about the human experience of being an entrepreneur. In this podcast, we're digging into what it really feels like to build a company from nothing. I was a broadcaster for over 20 years, so I've interviewed thousands of people, but entrepreneurs, not that many. And yet, they have the best stories. They're solving big problems and they're creating incredible impact. But it is hard work. So why would they do this? Let's find out. Joining me in studio today is Jenn Hunter, co-founder and director of operations for PayShepherd, a contractor management platform for heavy industry. Hey, Jenn.
Hey, Leah.
Thanks so much for doing this.
Of course. Happy to.
So fun to have you in the studio. Let's go right back to the beginning, as we do with all of these conversations. How did you actually get into entrepreneurship?
I wouldn't have thought that I would be an entrepreneur. It definitely wasn't something I thought about growing up, or it wasn't something I was exposed to a lot. But a colleague that I'd worked with for many years had, left the company that we were both at, and he was starting something, and he asked if my husband and I wanted to invest. And so I actually got a kick at the can without taking a lot of risk. I still had a full-time job. I didn't have to, lose that financial security for my family, but I was able to kind of join the hustle and see what that was like. And it was a really great stepping stone for me to actually take it on full-time, which I would consider kind of the real baby as PayShepherd.
Okay, cool. So you dipped your toe in the water with this first operation. And how did you feel about it, even from the get-go? What did it feel like to you?
I mean, it felt really natural for me, like the hustle, kind of like picking up the evenings and weekends. It was like really exciting to have like that new problem to solve and that new thing to reach for and have it be a bit my own. You always do that at work, and that's kind of what, he probably saw in me, and having it be something that we were working at for ourselves was really awesome. And that's how we started PayShepherd as well. We worked really hard for 12 months, and it was a small operating margin. The cash flow was really tight. Wes was always in the field managing labor. It was super challenging. It wasn't conducive to like going off and having families of our own and things like that. So we used that money that we made in that company and seeded the next venture that we had, which was PayShepherd.
So let's talk a little bit about PayShepherd. What is it?
PayShepherd is a contractor management solution, and we really digitize the workflow between contractors and their clients. And we're experts at the relationship between clients and their contractors and what good looks like. And it automates the contract compliance. So, anything from post-award to invoices paid and the relationship is being managed and performance metrics and who's going to be awarded the next job, that whole life cycle is, without PayShepherd, there's like no data flow. There is really thumb wags of what good looks like and costs that are coming in and no visibility. And so PayShepherd solves that gap in the relationship. It provides an opportunity for the source of the information and the source of the data to share it back and forth with the parties that need it. And it is really a shared data source. And so now both parties have access to that single source of record and a communication tool to manage that relationship.
So did you identify that problem that you wanted to solve, this idea of digitizing this industry right from the get-go, or was it something that you sort of came to realize over time?
On my side, it was always a problem I had seen and lived painfully from the vendor's experience. So, there's a lot required of a vendor from their payroll, their billing, administration, reporting, progress, their own performance that they need to report to their client. And when that's not going well, you could waste loads of hours, like sitting in the office. I remember, being in the office 5 extra hours, 1 day a week after everyone had left, just looking for, some formula error or some like data entry problem because the numbers just weren't making sense. And it's super painful. And if that relationship is not going well, it can get quite hostile. It's like not a fun environment to be around. And so we really wanted to set out to solve that people could invest the time where they could add the most value and not waste time creating data, manually checking for errors and eroding relationships, and really invest in the good value and the work that they could be doing.
Interesting. And you're in heavy industry. So for people listening, like, what is heavy industry? What do we mean by that?
Anything that you can, drive by or look at as smokestacks or pipelines or big facilities that have a lot of operations, they require that skilled trade force of, boilermakers and pipe fitters and electricians and things like that. It's really the bedrock of our industry, and it's not going anywhere. It fuels a lot of the Canadian economy, and it's a really exciting place to be. You get to build something from the ground up and see it go to operations, and it's just a really fun place to be when it's going well. And it can be really not a great place to be when it's not going well or when the relationship is eroding.
So what does that look like? Like, what do you mean by that? Like, how bad can it get? Like, give me an example.
Yeah. Well, I mean, when you are kind of building something and it's, way back in the back 40 or, in really small communities, most people have to travel in. And so you work all day with people who are on opposite sides of the contract and opposite sides of the whatever incentives they're working at. But then you also go home to the camp and you sit across the table from one another, or you are, eating at the same restaurants, or you're having people over for dinner. And there's all these different facets of those relationships that you have to navigate. And so it's not always the easy thing to do the right thing.
Right. Oh, interesting. And so, of course, when everything's digital, then that's just removed.
It removes the subjectivity and the difficult conversation of, I need you to do this. And PayShepherd really allows it to be, well, the technology found this and let's have a conversation about it. Or the corporation requires this of me and now I need to have a conversation with you about it. Or for your contract, this is the expectations and this is what you're accountable to. And the system does all that. The data tells the system, and the system is advising people how to handle it and how to manage those decisions. Yeah. So it doesn't need to be like a he said, she said, or I think this is happening. You're coming and you're having that dialogue with the data. We just heard a really great customer call just yesterday. And so a quote that that person had was, they feel indebted to PayShepherd. PayShepherd had helped them save $500,000 because they didn't have to go to litigation with a contractor and they could come to that conversation with data. And he said, I never like to go to my CEO without data, and I always go to PayShepherd to get my data.
Whoa. How does that feel to hear that?
It feels incredible. PayShepherd does a really great job at letting customers know where the value is happening. The system, it has that audit record and we can report on that, and it's part of our analytics. And so we are already having the dialogue with the customer about the return or the value to the vendors and the value to the customer and the users. But to hear somebody talk about a value that we didn't even narrate, or, we didn't even know that it escalated to that point, that's really powerful. And that's part of the impact that PayShepherd's making that we don't even realize sometimes.
So, and as a founder, I mean, you're building this thing and you're really hoping that it's going to solve these problems and make life easier. So when you hear something like that, what does that mean to you personally?
Personally, it feels so validating. Hearing that, I just love that story. The customer is happy, they're delighted. That they're going to be a returning customer. It feels really awesome. But for me, the most exciting thing is when we talk to prospects and they know they have this problem. They're super problem aware. They know that they're not looking at things. They know there's issues happening. And when they hear that there's something that can help them solve that, there's just this lightning in them and a bit of relief. That's a really big human impact. They work really hard. They're working 12 hours a day. They're just do they need to do 2 more hours of paperwork before they make it home to their families? And, often in peak periods, they're working more than 7 days in a row. It could be 14, 21 days in a row to do a major turnaround or, be part of that critical path on a capital project. And just being able to give them a little bit more time back, let them know that every single piece of data is being checked and it's compliant, and they don't have to comb through pieces of paper or bankers boxes worth of invoices after and potentially deal with litigation. that's, what we set out to do. And it's funny because as founders, you talk about these things really, really early on. Some of the things we haven't even developed in the product yet, but we hear the customer still needs them. So it's very validating that we really understood the problem, 6 years ago and before we even set out to build the technology. And we wanted to solve it then. And it's still a problem now. It's really validating to say, like, you're on the right path, kind of like a deja vu moment. You're like, oh, I've been here before. I'm on the right path.
That's got to feel nice to get that validation, especially because as a founder, and I know this, I've talked to founders all the time, it's an uphill battle building a venture. It's like a few steps forward and a whole bunch back and a few steps forward and a whole bunch back. But to get that little piece of validation has got to be instrumental.
It's very interesting. I often describe it like a roller coaster because even in those moments, and I'm, talking about this really like, brightly here, but there's always like okay, that's the problem we need to solve and how are we going to solve it? And like, you don't get a lot of time to celebrate those moments. And there's always a few other problems or items that you want to solve for in the background. So it's never really like you're just getting to enjoy it. In the day, you can experience that super high and the super low. And so I always share with people, like, a piece of my advice is like, don't do it alone. Have like co-founders, have a team around you and like, trusted advisors, because it can be a lonely journey, never putting work down, always taking it home with you, always thinking about something that's going on in the background, because there's always things to solve.
Of course, there's always a problem to solve. Yeah, no kidding. Can we talk a little bit more about heavy industry and women in heavy industry? Am I right to assume that there are fewer women in heavy industry?
For sure, it's a male-dominated field. I've had a really amazing experience personally. I've had great mentors that were women in heavy industry. I've had great mentors that were men in heavy industry, but it is harder to find us. And I think that it's changing now. I see a lot more women champions, women decision makers, and that's really awesome for us. But not a lot of people know the difference between dealing with a male champion or a male decision maker and a women decision maker. Like, what's important to them is different. How they're going to make decisions is different. And that's a little bit of the piece that I bring to the perspective for our team. And I don't know all of the different perspectives that there are, but at least there's a bit of more of a diverse strategy session when we're dealing with different types of personas.
For sure. Is it important to you to be a part of that conversation and be leading some of that change?
I've never had to fight for it at previous organizations or here, but I do, work with people who have had to fight for it, and they appreciate it a lot more than I do because it's such a different thing that they perceive at PayShepherd. So I really value that. We really value like fast conversations. And so, I'm not saying that I've never heard something that I didn't appreciate or find a comment to be, bias or things like that. But I just have a conversation right away and be like, what was the intention behind that? Do you realize how that might have come across? And I hope it helps just bring awareness to people as they speak to others and how things might come across to.
For sure. That's where it starts, with awareness. Yeah. So exciting. Okay. So let's talk about you as a founder and you're building this company. And let's talk about the fact that you're building this company alongside you're building your family. We were just walking in here and I was like, and how many kids do you have again? And you have 3 kids.
I do. Well, I have 4 babies. So PayShepherd would be number one.
PayShepherd's one of them.
Yeah. I mean, just that whole history. The first time that I became pregnant, my husband and I had been trying for a while, since before we had founded PayShepherd. It took a while for us. And so we never knew when it was going to happen. We had to keep trying because we knew we wanted to have a family. And then we'd been off the ground probably for about a year, getting some traction, working really hard at getting traction. And then I'm like, oh, what do we do now? And I go and tell my co-founder, and it was such a difficult conversation for me to have. And he's like, congratulations, so amazing. Didn't faze him whatsoever. And I'm like, already, we're trucking on. We were still the founding team at that point when I had my first. And so I could navigate everything between naps, evenings, and weekends. And in fact, I was even still working part-time for income. So I was totally skilled at, using every little piece of time that I had. And I got to be home with the baby. That was an interesting one because a customer that we had at that time, we had closed a contract with them for 6 months and we were waiting for them to make the first move to execute on the project. And the paperwork came in the day I was in the delivery room. So
no. How did
Sweet.
you manage that?
I, had a conversation with my husband. He's sitting in the hospital room across from me. And I was like, oh shit, this just happened. So you're going to have to take time off for the baby. And so he just took paternity leave, and we just figured out how many weeks he needed to take, and, figured that out with EI. He took time off, and that's been like the basis of all of the success, because dad knows how to do nap time. Dad knows how to like manage the baby schedule. Dad's doing bottles while my partner and I are traveling to the clients to deliver the results of this. And I'm pumping in the back seat and be like, don't look in the rearview mirror. You know what I mean?
I love this. Don't look in the rearview mirror, buddy.
Yeah.
Wow, that's amazing. Okay, but this is a funny story. We're having a giggle now. Okay, but I have had a couple of kids myself. When you're in it and you're in the moment, tell me what's going through your mind. Like, are you thinking to yourself, is this even possible? Like, can we pull this off?
So not with the first one. The first one was like, that was a pretty good breeze. And by the time we got super busy, like full daytime work, and that customer that we were working with was like implementing, little one could go off to daycare. So it was great. And then because we had to try for a little while, we weren't thinking it would be super easy to get pregnant again, but it was. And with the second, we had a customer in the pipeline who was moving really fast. And I'm like, I am expecting, and I don't know when this is going to close. So it was like, I can't stop a biological clock here. I remember it was like around the 8-month mark, and it was clear they were going to close and I was going to have this baby. And so I just had to get creative. And I went to my mom and I said, can you help us out? And so she retired early. She took a lower pension and she moved in with us and took care of the baby. Now that was all like fine and dandy. I was back at the desk 10 hours plus a day within 2 weeks. And so it was a really big strain, but we needed to do it. I was the only person on the team at that point who was customer facing in implementation and delivery. And so we had hired some help, and they joined all the trainings that I was doing. It was really great timing. They could listen to me, do the training for 8 hours a day, in and out. And then they took that part over, and I was doing more of the like customer success and like working with the stakeholders and managing the project. We implemented that customer in 4 weeks, like a large cohort of their contractors, and they had over 50 million in spend through our platform in the first 3 months. Wow. It was an incredibly busy time. But it was also the time where I was like, what am I going to change here at home to make this sustainable? Because I was starting to get some postpartum anxiety. Didn't really realize it at the time. It was during COVID. So it was a bit normal for me to have a baby on like, baby noises like on the camera while I'm training users and stuff. So I was super thankful for that. But I noticed every day around like 11, I was starting to become like short of breath. And I would just like choke it back, thinking that I might have a dry throat from talking all day, having water. And then it took me a couple months to realize this wasn't happening to me on the weekends.
Oh,
and I was like, is this a stress thing? I had never gone through anything like that before, stress or anxiety. And then I had a panic attack in the middle of the night while I'm feeding the baby. And I'm like shaking. And I'm like, I know that these hormones are going to be passed to my baby through the breast milk because it's actively happening and he's attached to me. How is this baby going to go to sleep? And then I'm not going to be able to go to sleep. And it's just like compounding. It was spiraling for sure. Whoa. Luckily, I got the baby to sleep and I was freezing. Like I had the chills. I was like super in a weird state. And I like went in the hot tub at like 4 a.m. and just like calmed myself down long enough that I could wake my husband up, have a conversation, and like decide to change a few things. It was a really interesting place to be. I think I also had like some health complications and, was dealing with fevers and like infection basically. And so once I managed that, all of the issues went away. Like they tested me for like congestive heart failure because of some of the things they were seeing in my blood test results and a whole bunch of different things. And I realized that, yeah, it was like a weird combination of postpartum anxiety, stress, and like an infection, an internal infection.
Wow.
Yeah.
And this is all happening and you're building your company and you've got this little tiny baby.
Early days, super small team, need to be at work every day. I remember it was feeling so weird, like taking half a day off and like driving, down to see a specialist like in Calgary and going to these like appointments and like being like away from my desk. Like it's a bit weird. Even now it's a bit weird to be like, I'm on a vacation day and like I'm just not looking. Like you really have to retrain yourself at these different stages.
The Founder Mindset is brought to you by ATB Financial. In the fast-paced world of tech, your banking needs evolve as quickly as your industry. Whether you're just starting out or aiming to reach new heights, ATB Financial is dedicated to supporting tech companies every step of the way. Partner with ATB Financial for a banking solution that grows with your business. Okay, so, the part of me that's not an entrepreneur is sitting here going, okay, why would you do this to yourself?
It's very interesting. Like I've had a conversation recently of like, okay, well, that's personal and like this is professional. And I was like, oh, that's an interesting perspective. I was like, I don't have that. It's all personal to me. It's all my, my baby. Like I've sacrificed so much personally for this. And this has afforded me so much personally as well. And so the blend to me is it's just my time. Right. And, whatever is the highest priority in the moment gets my time. So there's not a clear distinction between like that professional hat and the personal hat. And I'm okay with that. I think I've always operated on that plane. And I look at work-life balance as like a lifetime, not like a day or a week or a year, right. But like, what will my work-life balance be like in a lifetime? And so I'm hopeful that, this business will afford me time back with my family or, special memories with my family because of sacrificing a lot of the time with them as small babies.
Thank you for sharing that. That's an incredible story. So that's on the personal side, we could say, even though you just said it's all personal. But is there also a moment for you when it comes to actually building the company itself where you're thinking this is the do or die moment? Like this is a pivotal moment in the building of this company where this is a no-go or go situation. Like it may or may not work and we just got to go for it. Is there one of those when it comes to actually building PayShepherd itself that comes to mind?
Wow, that's a great question. I think about like all the go or no go moments. It's so funny. It's always been around people.
Around people.
It is around people. Like I think about everything in the perspective of the human. I mean, the product is designed to help the human experience and to help the relationships. And so it's end users that use our product, and it's people who develop our product, and it's people who scope out the activities that the product is going to need to solve. And so I always think about it. Is it the right people for the time? Is it the right clients? How do we motivate those users or motivate these teams? And so that's the perspective that I always think about. Do we have the right combination of people?
And how do you feel about making those decisions? Like, do you know, okay, actually this person needs to go, or this person needs to change how they're working or engaging with clients or whatever the case may be? How do you feel about approaching that situation?
It's so embedded in PayShepherd culture. The product is about accountability, a transparency, like honesty, doing what's right, acting with integrity, going where the data shows you to go. Everything we talk about with our customers is feedback. Our anomalies, our contract compliance is all feedback. So feedback with our team is super critical. It's very important and it's fast. And so if team members are not activating on that feedback or they don't want to hear the feedback, just like a contractor would need to be accountable to the feedback for their contracts, that's how we like really manage people within our team. And I would say that as a founding group, we've attracted really incredible people to join the journey, super long-standing relationships. The relationship always comes first. That's another critical thing for the product and for our industry, and it's how we operate in the team. And we also, just trust our gut. And so we have a lot of those conversations around like, this just didn't feel right. And, maybe we're not going to, bring that person in the team. Like loved them, got them all the way across almost to the finish line, and like something changed the game. Like we really trust that intuition.
I mean, I've heard from people that it takes a while to learn to trust that intuition. Did you find that?
Muscle. I mean, I see that in every facet of my life. If you're not open to something, or if your pathways aren't used to operating that way, it will just be kind of ignored. It'll be overlooked, right? People's attention is like a few moments, and if you don't capture it, you don't get it. So I think that it's a muscle that you definitely practice.
Yeah. There's a lot of practice when it comes to venture building, isn't there? You got to practice ways to be and practice all kinds of ways of thinking and so on. Yeah, for sure.
And it's a big transformation. You're constantly transforming. Like the business as like a team of 3 founders is different than a team of 10 people. And the team of 10 people with, a handful of customers is different than a team of, 30 people with dozens of customers. And, a team of no financial backing to a team of multiple different stages and different investors is a different beast as well. So it's kind of like parenting. I always relate it to like, I'm constantly learning about this new phase. It's kind of like that. It's an ever transformational journey, which can be hard.
Which
Change
totally
is
can
hard.
be hard. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. How do you deal with that change? How do you deal with that constant evolution?
I would say that on the business side, that comes a lot more naturally to me because I'm doing it way more. The parenting transformations, they're harder because it like didn't come with a manual. I haven't been practicing it for 10 years and they're faster. They're a bit faster. But yeah, it's just about time. It's about reflecting on those and like kind of knowing where you want to get to.
Right. Keeping that outcome that you're going after in mind. Yeah. How do you take time for yourself now to stay sort of sane and well as you negotiate all these transformations and change in venture building?
I've recently stumbled upon like generating some better habits for myself. I mean, my habit used to be, work needed to happen. And I'm like a night owl. So it'd be like, do I have my refreshments, which is like half a bowl of chocolate chips and like a tea, like a caffeinated tea at 11 p.m. And I'm going back to work when I finally get the kids down and I know I have like a 4-hour solid stretch before they wake up the next time. That used to be my like habit. And even then, the like 1 hour that I would get to myself is after that. So I would still like watch a show before going to bed. I had to like transition to be able to sleep. I don't do that anymore.
Really?
Like for sure, like focusing on nutrition, kind of focusing on like getting outside and doing that like bilateral movement. So like riding a bike or walking or doing anything I have to think about strategically while moving, because you can activate both your analytical side of your brain and your creative side of your brain. So I get a lot more success learning. So listening to something, having our walking meeting so I'm not distracted by like pings and Slack and things like that, walking. Anything I like want to think about critically by myself, I want to be walking. So
you want to be walking.
Yeah.
Good for you.
It is like a recent change.
Is that right?
It's pretty recent. Yeah.
Was there something that made you go, I need to make some changes like right now?
So 3 kids back to back, under 2 years apart from all of them, and never taking a mat leave really.
Wow.
I was in a state where I was like, I kind of just realized that I wasn't handling stress well. I was like, okay, I have a bit of like a workload paralysis. Like I'm not navigating through and being effective. So then it took me a couple of months to navigate, well, what do I do from here? And then it was just like this, I need a change. I need to have a bigger change, like a lifestyle change. And so I instituted that like maybe just over 6 months ago. And it has been really game changer, like prioritizing sleep, eating better, and getting like that, getting walking and moving and a little bit of identity back too. I mean, that's pretty isolating as a parent as well, and an entrepreneur. So just like the double whammy of those two things, just trying to like carve back a little bit of like what old Jenn would have been like.
What does Jenn need? Yeah. Not just everybody else with the business. Yeah. I get it. It. Good for you. That's amazing. The other thing I want to talk to you about is impact. Impact is really important for us at Thin Air Labs, and I know it's very important for you at PayShepherd. When you think about impact, what do you think about?
I think about it kind of threefold. I think about our team, the team that we're building, the culture that we have, and like how our team shows up and celebrates that. I think about our clients, and I think about community. I have a couple of examples. For our team, we work really hard. We work peak at like, long hours when our customers are in peak periods. The industry is, very leanly resourced. And during those peak periods, like adding one more new thing to someone's plate, like a technology, can be really challenging. And we lean all the way into those people to make sure that it's as seamless as possible. And so that affords our team to have more flexibility and manage their own day. They don't have to be at the desk between, 8 to 5. If they need to go and, attend their child's award ceremony that they've never been able to do at any of their past careers, they can now do that and like see their kid's face light up. Like my mom's never been here for one of these. Those are the moments that are just like incredible. We built that. That's never going away. And like people show up differently when like their life is valued like that and their big life moments are valued like that. For our customers, there's a lot of leakage. There's a lot of, savings that our customers can have. And when we can report big numbers for the return on the client's investment, and then they can come back to us and tell us it was even more than that because of the litigation we saved them. Different industries are going through different, macro economy effects where there's a lot of pressure on certain industries. And when there's high amount of pressure on industry and projects get shut down, or facilities have to close, or they cut half the staff, that can really greatly impact the community, the small towns where these people live, their livelihoods, the dynamic of the team that remains after that. And so if we can make a facility a little bit better margin, like operational margin, performing a little bit better, be able to delay those or completely put them off, that can change the community and really impact the client.
Like that's bigger than the company. It's bigger. It affects the whole community, to your point. Wow, that's incredible. That's amazing. When we talk about impact, it's often what drives a lot of people. For you, when you think of staying motivated, how do you stay motivated to keep doing what you do? What's your driver?
I mean, I wake up every day and get to work with a great group of people who want to solve problems. It's not fun to show up when, someone doesn't want to be part of what they're solving and they don't, want to lean in and support their team. The way our team shows up is, anyone needs help, it's there. It might not be my deliverable, it might not be my client, but oh, you need some support, boom, let's get it done. We move fast, we, collaborate, and we attract some of the brightest minds coming from industry that are looking to be able to be part of the solution and have, experienced the problem for so long. And the enterprise organization is a dinosaur and it takes a really long time to change. And here at PayShepherd, they can just be boom, making changes every day, seeing impact and seeing value. That's super attractive to them. So they're very energized, and I just feed off of that energy, and I just love working with them.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
And then they get to participate in this incredible culture that you built,
Participate, form, every individual that comes onto the team, they, add their own spark to the team and motivate and inspire us all. And so we really look for that when we make each hire.
How many people are you now? I forget.
We're north of 40.
Wow.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
You just broke into a really huge grin when I asked you that question. What does that mean to you to have, you've got 40 people now on your team?
It's a lot of responsibility.
Sure it is.
It's been a lot of fun. It's been great to see the momentum change with different individuals come on the team, learn from people who have done it before, see the different perspectives. I have a really strong vendor perspective, but a lot of people on our team now come from the client side. And I love the collaboration that comes from those two sides coming together. We hire really diversely for skills. And so each new person that comes to the team is offering something that we didn't already have. And we're all learning from that. So it's just had been super incredible. We're coast to coast. We can hire from remote small towns, and we're bringing talent to the industry that might not have been able to come to that before. Yeah. That adds its own layers of complexity, but we're really intentional about forming relationships, getting pop-up offices, getting the team together. We're actually all going to be together in Calgary in September, so we'll all come and be buzzing around here, probably.
That sounds great.
Yeah.
We look forward to it. That's amazing. Well, as we start to wrap this up, I always like to end on a couple of questions. You're the founder of PayShepherd. You're one of the co-founders, and you're writing the story for your company. How do you want the story for PayShepherd to go?
I can't wait to see PayShepherd as a standard name. The brand is recognized across multiple different industries. I want to be working with the most mature, sophisticated clients and industries, right up to those really heavily regulated industries that are very problem aware. They're trying to solve this, and they're looking at performance management. PayShepherd can play in that field, and I want us to be a known brand, a household name in all of industry, and really benefiting both sides of the relationship, vendors and clients. And from there, globally recognized is the goal. So transcending industries and transcending continents is kind of my North Star.
Whoa, that's so exciting. I love it. And as a founder, you are a founder. You founded this incredible company. How do you hope your story goes?
I mean, I really hope that my 3 young boys are seeing like what hard work and dedication can do for themselves, for their families, for their livelihoods. I want to be able to, give them all the opportunities and like build little feminists. Like I want them to walk into any room and, be totally aware and be an ally and, like let all perspectives shine. And so if I can do that by how I show up at work, at home, they will understand what the mental load is like to run a business, to manage a household, to, take care of other people, and that doesn't all need to fall on any certain person or any certain gender, then I'll have been winning.
You sure have. Jenn, thank you so much for this.
Of course. Thank you for having me. It was really fun.
As the lead investor in Thin Air Labs Fund 1, Sandstone Asset Management believes in building the commons through innovative founders who are creating meaningful positive impact both locally and globally. Sandstone is doing just that by backing the next generation of emerging entrepreneurs. Picture this. A founder's startup goes from idea to international impact, supported by strategic investors who believed in their vision. That's the power of Sandstone's approach. Sandstone doesn't just manage wealth, they cultivate it, supporting founders at all stages. Visit sandstoneam.com to learn how Sandstone builds legacies that last. Innovation is what drives our economy forward. The Opportunity Calgary Investment Fund is investing in opportunities that will accelerate innovation and build a diversified and resilient economy. Explore how OSIF is funding Calgary's future at opportunitycalgary.com.